Blog Talk Radio.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, and welcome to yet another episode of XANDERMONIUM with me, Xander Gibb, the talk show that gets you talking. Yes, that was my computer with my volume on that you just heard. It's great to be back with you for the very first episode of 2013. Wow, 2013. Well, the Golden Globes are upon us once again, and I am rather disappointed that there's no nomination for my portrayal of Coco, the homosexual, murderous coffee shop manager in the movie Life's Too Short for Bad Coffee by Robin Stratz. But there is always next year. I think I'm getting a bit typecast. I'm always playing people who are either gay or murderers, but let's hope that will change in the future. So don't forget to check out the Jake Pantlin Show, Saturdays, 1 p.m. PST, 4 p.m. EST, with Jake, Jen, and Eli on all the Cult of Jake peeps. And after this show, you can check out Brandy and Jenny on Timeout Seat, 3 p.m. PST, 6 p.m. EST. And also check out my sister from another mister, Fallon Stone, on the F-Word X next Saturday, the 19th, with special guest Mystique Summers from RuPaul's Drag Race Season 2. This is the second in a double series about drag queens. Moving on from drag queens, but not really. If you're in the UK, you can watch my friend, the dear Jeff Christian, on Celebrity Big Brother's Bit on the Side, CBB Bots. It's every Wednesday and Friday for the evictions till January 25th, which is the final. Last Wednesday and Friday are already on the Channel 5 website and also on YouTube. You can check them out. And you can also follow him on Facebook and Twitter. Tell him that Xander sent you. Yeah, apparently in the show the other day, he flashed his underwear to 2.1 million viewers. So let's see what happens next Wednesday. So today, my very special guest is actor, writer, producer, TV and radio personality Michael Fishman. Michael rose to fame as DJ Connor on the Roseanne Sitcom. Unlike most child stars, has an interesting tale to tell. Michael is a husband and father, and up until recently hosted a weekly radio talk show. I look forward to finding out more about him and his career, and moves towards returning to his first love, acting. Welcome to you, Michael Fishman. Is this you on hold?
Yes, it's me.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm good.
And you're in the outdoors today, I believe.
I'm actually out running around, yeah.
Cool. So how's the weather there in L.A.?
It's beautiful. People are complaining because it's cold and it's like 50 degrees. So
really? Well, I think it's about 48 here in New York, but it's still pretty damn cold and foggy. But I'm not complaining. So Happy New Year to you. Did you make any New Year's resolutions this year?
I don't make New Year's resolutions. I kind of am on the process of just taking day by day, trying to make good decisions day by day.
Right, which is very hard. I've been resolving to get fitter and lose some more weight and to be a little less sensitive, which is kind of hard for me, but, onwards and upwards. So the first thing I want to ask you, your name's Fishman, but apparently you're not Jewish, is that right?
I am.
You are Jewish? I was misinformed. Just making a note to fire my researchers. So I always thought you were Fishman, but you weren't Jewish, but that kind of clears that up for me.
Yeah, don't fire anybody on my behalf. Don't do
No.
that.
I'm the researcher for this show, so I can't really fire myself. But you never know. So can you tell us anything about the script you've been working on, and how did your meeting go last week?
It went fantastic. It's a romantic comedy, which is not something I normally write. I usually write more either sitcom stuff or straight drama. So romantic comedy is not usually my first thing, but it's been something that the idea I've been playing with for a while. I can't get into it too much, but
No, I
turning
get
out
that.
pretty good.
Cool.
And I love it.
So you were saying earlier on Twitter that you're not the same person you were when you were 15. Do you feel some people kind of still see you in those terms as this like young quirky kid that was on the TV?
Well, quirky, I think we all have our quirks, but for me, especially somebody asked me today, do you mind being typecast? And I don't know how much I'm typecast other than at times people remember the show, and I look at that as a huge compliment. It means I did something that mattered for people, and I would never trade what I did for anything. If it makes it harder to find work now, well, then that just means I'm going to have to be better.
Right. I see that. I see that. I was just saying at the head of the show that I kind of tend to be typecast. I get just the same roles, but I guess because you were in quite a pivotal show and you played a very memorable role, I guess it's kind of hard to cut off from that. I know you're not saying that you want to cut off from it, but I guess, you'd like to play other roles.
Well, I think, as I'm sure it is with you, everybody wants to play more, and the more dynamic, the more fun.
Right.
You want to do more than one thing. If we all just did the same thing all day, every day, it would at times maybe get boring.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I when I get sent, potential roles, it's always the same thing, and I think people forget that acting is exactly what it says. You're acting, you're actually trying to be something or portray something different to what you are, hence that it's acting. But I kind of think that some casting people are kind of a little bit narrow-minded and tunnel-visioned, and they can only see you in certain things. But, this is why I like to do a lot of breakout stuff and do things that I really wouldn't normally do, because I think it gets people to see you in different lights, really.
Yeah, agreed. It's, for casting, too, I've known a lot of casting people over the years, and, it's a tough job because usually when you're casting, you're not casting a project that you own, so you're casting on behalf of someone else.
Right.
So you're trying to fill somebody else's idea of what the character is. And I would imagine that at times it can be very difficult. You bring somebody like me in and, maybe for a really serious or, a dramatic thing, and the first thing I walk in and they go, "Hey, you were DJ," and that person calls them when I leave the room and goes, "He was good, but, oh, he was so funny as a kid." I would imagine for a casting director sometimes that's tough because you're not just dealing with your perceptions, you're dealing with your boss or your person you're working for.
Absolutely. So how old were you when you first started acting?
6 years old.
Wow. And was DJ your first role?
It was the first job I'd ever done.
Wow. And that's very young, isn't it? I mean, a lot of young people start acting and they do like little bits and this and that or TV ads, but to go into a sitcom, and I mean that must have just been really amazingly I would say scary, but interesting too. I mean, it's a whole new world, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it could be scary. I never was scared. I always loved what I did. I got into this, a lot of people start doing plays or doing things at school, and then they start doing, commercials. And in my case, I really hadn't auditioned for almost anything. And the audition for Roseanne came up, and Roseanne pushed for me, and it was the course of like 7 auditions over 6 months. So it was a long process. And maybe you just don't know enough to be scared, or at 6 years old, you don't have the forethought to understand how different this is going to be.
Right.
But I always loved it. It was something for me that it just felt right.
I mean, it's funny. I was watching some of the blooper reels on YouTube as part of my research for this show, and I noticed how much fun you were having. You were I don't know, you were about 6 or 7. It was like it was the first or second season, and even like in between, you were having fun, and the audience really enjoyed the things you were doing. Like even in between takes, and Roseanne was turning around and saying, "Michael, come on, let's And all the while she was kind of stopping herself from laughing too. So was it as much fun as it looked, to make?
Our show was so much fun to work on. Working on Roseanne is one of those most unique experiences. Everybody really got along well. Contrary to a lot of this stuff, we were really stable. We were a well-oiled machine, and it was an amazing experience.
So, looking back, do you see the social importance of the topics that Roseanne took on? I mean, it was groundbreaking and unapologetic for the subjects it got us to look at. Everything from racism to homosexuality. And at that time, a lot of these things were kind of seen as taboos for television. America was a totally different place back then. Do you see the social importance of the show?
Yeah, I do. When you go to, like in my case, I went to college, and here I am looking through a textbook, and our show is in my college textbook.
Really? Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's a really awkward moment where you're like, okay. And even at the time when we were doing it, we kind of knew it was taboo, and one of the ways, especially being young, that is how a lot of times the network or other people did not want you to broach those topics, and you start looking at it and going, no, we're fighting for people we know. We're fighting for real things that are happening in real life.
So as a young actor, were these issues explained to you to kind of have a greater understanding of the subject matter?
I don't think anybody really ever had to pull me aside and explain too many of the issues.
Right.
You grow up a little faster because you're growing up around adults, so you're used to some of the stuff about, people having real problems, people having mortgages and family commitments.
Totally.
You know people who have faced racism, and you have friends and coworkers who have dealt with religious persecution, or, who have dealt with being gay and trying to come out to their family. So those things, I guess I got to see the reality of it almost before we did the shows.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it makes you really wholeheartedly want to be right there, want to push with them, want to be a part of it.
So, did you find any of the subject matters embarrassing? Like in one of the episodes, they were kind of inferring that DJ had been masturbating. Did you get a lot of ribbing for some of the subject matter that you were involved in, or?
Well, did I get a lot of ribbing? Yeah. I went to a public school, so, the days and weeks we weren't working, I was back at regular school.
Right.
And it never would fail, like things like there's an episode where DJ won't kiss a girl because she's black.
Yep.
There was the masturbation episode. There was a lot, DJ cutting off the heads of Barbie dolls. There were a lot, and it would always work out. That was supposed to be on, like, the week we went back to work.
Right.
And the schedule would get juggled or something, and it would always be the week that I was at school all week. So, you go home one night and you turn on the television, you're like, okay, which episode's on? You're like, oh, no, that's going to be interesting tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think sometimes, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, the masturbation episode, you would think that would be painfully uncomfortable.
Right.
But in my case, Roseanne called me before they ever even wrote that script and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this. It's going to be kind of like when we did the episode about the girls getting their period or about getting birth control. This is just part of life, but are you okay with it? Because I don't want to do it if you're uncomfortable. Right. And so in my case, my attitude's always been the same. If it's funny, bring it, and with such good writers that you're going to have great lines. I mean, it's almost
Absolutely.
like it's set up to be successful, and it's not going to be grotesque or over the top. So I was always all for it. I think that's one of the best episodes we ever did. You take a little ribbing. I guess I look at it this way. If you're a performer, you're willing to take a little ribbing and a little criticism if you know what you're doing has merit to it and enjoyable.
And I think as well, it's like a double whammy if it gets people talking about certain subjects that are actually seen as that we're seen as social taboos. Because a lot of the things that we're were portrayed in the show are now kind of like everyday issues. They're not kind of brushed under the carpet or seen as as wrong or bad or different. So it's kind of it's a real sign that the times have changed somewhat. So in a couple of the episodes, you played Roseanne as a child with Laurie Metcalf's daughter, Zoe Perry. Was that odd for you, or did you just see it as like another acting role?
I would say that's maybe the only time I ever felt any pressure, because you're trying to make fun of your boss.
Yeah.
Do it in a way that is fun and playful, yet acceptable and believable. So that's like trying to walk 4 tightropes at the same time. But Zoe and I grew up together on the set, and Zoe is tremendously talented, and I always loved Zoe. Zoe and I were so close. The episode where we do almost kind of like there's flashbacks, and I play Roseanne,
yeah.
She plays Jackie. That episode came about on less than a day's notice. Roseanne was put on bed rest when she had her youngest son.
Right.
And so literally we came in with a script on Monday. She got put on bed rest. So Tuesday we're working something out, and hey, guess what? You're going to play Roseanne, and Zoe's going to play Laurie, and Laurie's going to play, going to play you and John's going to play you older, and, he's going to play fortune teller. And, it was always, there's always the turnover and the high impact of working and creating and sketching things out, but also in an environment that's safe and fun. So there's nothing to lose. No,
I see that. I mean, I believe a big part of why Roseanne was successful, aside of the fabulous writing, was that the cast seemed to be just so perfect for the roles that the script was kind of bringing out. I just felt that, you watch some things and you think, nah, she's not right for that role, or he's not right for that role. Just the casting was just so on point for the show.
Yeah, I think it was brilliant. And one of the things that worked out so well is, John and Laurie come from a theater background, and Roseanne was a stand-up, and all of us kids we all got used to it, doing it in front of an audience. You just raise your game, you play off that audience, and we played off each other. And I think it was just the perfect combination of people who all loved it and get it and care about each other and care about what they're doing.
Right. Absolutely. So I saw you tweeted recently that your kids watch Roseanne. Do they have a hard time equating that funny kid with their dad, or how do they respond to it?
It's interesting because my kids, I guess, have a somewhat warped view of what people would consider fame, because they've grown up with this show. And I don't have little kids. I have one moving towards high school, and I'm looking at high school and middle school more than anything, as funny as that sounds. And so they're old enough to be aware, but they just see it as work. Like, they've known Roseanne their whole life, right, and they've always looked at Roseanne as like an extra family member. So when they hear ads, like, an ad for her doing stand-up in Las Vegas, they just laugh and go, Roseanne's on the radio again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to go see her in Vegas. Actually, this is the first time she's done stand up for about 5 or 6 years, apparently, and I would really be interested to see what she kind of comes up with, because I guess for someone of her caliber, you've always got to be coming up with fresh and new stuff, and to keep the audience kind of interested and on their toes.
Well, I know the last time she did her thing, and there's a special Blonde and Bitch, and I guess I'll give her the plug. I love her. I think
me too.
She has a daring and a willingness to say things that other people don't want to say or don't even want to hear sometimes. And I think that's what great comedians especially do, is they touch those topics that are sensitive or almost off limits, and they open them up, shine light on them, and make them accessible.
Absolutely. So how do you feel stardom at such a young age affected your life on your personality, because you seem so different. You know, I've said this to you before on Twitter that like most people I've met or encountered that were kind of famous from being younger are so far up their own ass they can see their kidneys. You don't seem like that. Do you feel like you were kept normalized, or what do you think?
I think the truth is, I don't see myself as a star. I never have.
Right.
And like, the term child star probably scares the hell out of me more than most things, because
I see that.
The connotation is never good. It's never like, hey, we're functional, or you look at Ron Howard and Jodie Foster, and people have made it. It's not like you can't make it.
No.
But it's not the perception. And in my case, I was lucky. The people I worked with were really, really good-hearted people. You know, I spent a lot of time at Laurie's house, and I spent a lot of time with Roseanne, and even our crew, from the writers and producers to the directors and our staff of just all the crew people, everybody kind of took me in. And for me, I really got this unique experience of it was like having 200 like aunts who all wanted to make you the perfect guy.
I get that.
To future date their niece, and then like to have 200 older brothers or uncles, young uncles, who wanted to teach you how to like behave the proper way to be a man's man. And so it was the combination of, I just tried to learn as many good things as I could from people, and then you make choices. The bottom line is people can make whatever excuses they want. You had a choice.
Absolutely. I mean, I get the idea that that's kind of carried on for you with Roseanne. I was really heartened recently when some website or other was doing you down, and she jumped in and said, leave my effing kids alone. I mean, that must feel really nice to know that she still holds you in such high esteem, after all this time. Because most of the time when you work with actors, whether you're old or younger or whatever, you work with them for the time. You might have the odd beer, like, after, but that's as far as it goes. But you seem to be very close to Roseanne.
Yeah, I have stayed close, especially Roseanne. I don't think Roseanne and I have never really had more than maybe 2 months where we haven't been in close contact.
Right.
We've always been in contact, and we've had such a tremendous relationship. And then I have a good relationship with John Goodman, and, I text back and forth, like Laurie's doing a play right now in New York. And so you're in contact with these people because good people don't just work with people and then move on.
No, you're right. I agree with that.
No. And so I was lucky. I worked with people who had a little extra space in their heart and were willing to share it with me.
So, do you keep in touch with anybody else from the show, like any of the Beckys or Sarah, whose name escapes me, who played Darlene?
Sarah Gilbert.
Sarah Gilbert, yeah, because she's on a TV show now on CBS, isn't she? Like a chat show with
she does The Talk.
Sharon Osbourne, Yeah,
The Talk. The Talk actually is taped on the same lot that we worked on all those years ago, and I actually go back and visit her frequently. I show up. I'm for all the people who work there, I'm that guy who hangs out with a couple of the lighting guys. I hang out with CJ and Calvin and all the lighting crew and hang out with them backstage, and then come and give Sarah a hug and make sure she's doing well. And, it's not something where I'm there to gain any awareness from anybody else. I don't sit in the audience. I just kind of show up from time to time and check on her, make sure she's doing well.
Cool. And she has children now as well, doesn't she, Sarah?
She does. She has 2.
Cool. Yeah, it's kind of funny how when you like a TV show, you kind of like as a viewer, you kind of tend to try and keep tabs on what they're doing, professionally, and you kind of tend to care about how well they're doing too. Because if they're your favorites and they're from your favorite show, you kind of you want them to do good and then to be getting constant work and things like that.
Well, I think good people you root for, and people who do things the right way or who have done good things that you enjoy. Even as a person, I'm a fan of other actors and actresses. You just watch, and good work is always one of those things. It just sounds right. It has a resonance with people.
Absolutely. So I know you're good friends with Jake Pentland, Roseanne's son, who you played. The character was kind of modeled after him in the show. Was that ever weird, or do you feel like playing him has brought you closer together, as it were?
You know, it's funny. Jake and I, our friendship really developed, I would say, after the show. We were always aware of each other, but Jake didn't really spend a lot of time on the set. I would say of all of her kids, he was probably there the least.
Right.
And you know, I mean, we would see each other in passing, and, you know, he went home with her, and he knew the script battles and all these things and back and forth. But for me, I never thought of it as I'm playing Jake. You know, I was playing Jay. And so, you know, after the show ended, you know, Jake and I knew each other pretty well, and then as time went on, we knew each other more and more, and then there were a bunch of projects that they were working on that I had a skill set that fit. And the more we spent time together, the more we found that we like each other as people. And so it really almost is independent of Roseanne.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get that. I actually asked Jake for a quote about you for this show, and this is what he said. He said, Michael Fishman is the most sane, crazy person I have ever met. I don't know how complimentary that is, but knowing Jake, that there's a nice line that kind of runs through it.
Actually, I take that as a great compliment. I don't think I ever want to be considered the ho-hum normal average. I think I don't mind being considered a little crazy or a little unexpected. Got to reach out and take some chances in life and do things that people may not always see as the norm, or, you know. But I would say to be called the most sane, insane person, that's not bad. I like that.
He once told me, I was talking to him once on the telephone, and you came into the conversation. I can't even remember for what reason. And he said, if he had a hole in his wall, not only would you come fix it for him, but if necessary, you'd build him a new frickin' wall too. You know?
Yeah.
So people say nice stuff about you. And everyone I interact with on Twitter, you know, people in the cult of Jake, you know, seem to hold you in very high esteem and tell me what a nice, decent guy you are. But can you actually be all that nice? Tell me what is Michael Fishman's biggest fault?
Oh, I got plenty of faults.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not claiming sainthood by any stretch of the imagination. You know what? I try to treat everybody well. I mean, just not one particular kind of person. I grew up in an environment on a set where, as an actor, you definitely get a choice. You can be one of those actors who is all about themselves, or you can be somebody who acknowledges how many other people put in work over the course of a day to make what you do possible. And so, in my case, I've always worked behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera.
Right.
So I think, you know, it's almost silly to say how good a guy I am, because usually the scale is somewhat low. So I come out higher than maybe I would. I try hard. I care. I would say I genuinely care. But
none of those things are faults, are they, really?
Okay. Faults. I can be stubborn. I'm a perfectionist, which can be a pain in the ass at times. And I definitely have strong opinions and strong beliefs, and I don't have a problem sharing them, which is, I think, something that made Roseanne and I get along well.
Right.
And I do have a temper. Are those good enough faults?
Yep, absolutely. I just kind of I think that when people can admit that they have a few faults, it reinforces their humanity somewhat for me. Do you know what I mean?
Oh no, absolutely. I'm a defender. I would say my nature is probably a caretaker.
Right.
And I would tell you one of my faults is I don't boast enough. I don't have a big enough ego. I have enough ego to drive me, but not enough to, at sometimes, overwhelm other people and give me free shots. Like, that's just not my nature.
Right.
And that could be a drawback in this business.
I see that. So tell me, if you could pick any role for yourself on TV right now, what would it be? What show would you like to be in?
Oh, man. Wow, that's a tough question.
It is,
isn't it? Up there? Yeah, I love doing comedy, but I would love to do something a little more serious. I think, even like I'd love to do a medical show. I would love to do something like even Grey's Anatomy, because people seem to be really.
I can see you in Grey's Anatomy, actually.
And I see James Pickens on there, and he's just such an amazing guy.
Yeah, because he was in Roseanne, wasn't he? He played Chuck, was it?
Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that would, something like that. I would love to do a cop show, because I think I could easily play a cop or a detective. That show Elementary that's on CBS is a tremendous show. I love Sherlock Holmes, but I'm kind of young for that part. Something like that. I love physicality too. If I could do something like, what is that show? Person of Interest.
What, like something doing your own stunts and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I like to be physical, and I like serious stuff as well as comedy.
I'm totally the opposite. If they said, Xander, we're going to give you this role, but you have to do your own stunts and jump off a roof and do this and that, and I'd be like, maybe you need to call somebody else.
See, it's funny because I'm the guy who will, like, run up the tree and jump out the tree and jump over the car and do the fight scene and, like, no, I want to do my own stunt. Now, I'll pay for it later, but...
Hey, I'm not saying I wouldn't like to do it. I would love to do it, but at the moment, I'm not physically kind of built for that stuff. But in the future, yeah, hey, I'd love to. I'm looking forward to kind of going horse riding again and things like that. I used to love things like that when I was a kid. And so all this health and fitness thing for me is kind of getting back to some of the things that I used to be able to do, before I let myself go, as it were. So you've been married to the lovely Jennifer for 13 years, and you've got 2 children, as we already said. How's fatherhood changed you, and how do you feel your own experiences growing up have sculpted how the kind of father you've become?
I think kids change you in so many ways that you don't know how much they're going to change you until it happens. I started by helping to raise my little brother, who's 9 years younger than me, when I was a teenager. And so that helped me because I got to make all my really good mistakes with him. I feel bad because, I was the tough, like, older brother, father figure for him. And so, at times you realize that some of the things you took too seriously maybe aren't. So I think with my kids, I have tempered that. You kind of relax.
Right.
It's almost like having a first kid. You're super strict, and then progressively you pick your battles
a little more lenient with your seconds.
Yeah, and it's funny for me with my kids. I don't want to be their friend. I'm definitely their dad. It's hard in my house because I'm the disciplinarian, but I'm also the clown.
Right.
So
hard to play both roles, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard. I take both extremes, and then my wife takes the middle. And sometimes I would like to walk in the middle, or I would like not to have to be the bad guy.
So
but
hard.
And I would say the things that I do best, a lot of them I learned at work. I learned a lot of really good skills from being around so many people. So my acceptance, I think, has really transferred to my kids. My kids are 100 times better than I am.
And I guess you kind of, when you see other people, other parents, you get to kind of choose what is good practice and bad practice. I mean, I'm not a parent, and I often see parents and think, God, that's a really bad way to kind of behave with your kid. But, obviously you can't say anything about it.
Well, you swear you won't do any of that, though, when you're a parent.
Yeah.
You swear you're not going to be like your parents. And even I had good parents, but, you swear certain things you're going to do differently. And some I have. But some things you find yourself like, I was never going to say that. And then you're like, oh, no, I sound just like my dad.
Absolutely. I have to just, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I have to interject because I've just been berated from the chat room by the lovely Kathy Reynolds for not paying enough attention to the chat. It's really hard to talk and to do all the stuff and keep the show going. But Kathy wants you to know that she wants you on Big Bang and wants you to play Penny's boyfriend.
Yeah, that would be a good dynamic. It would be fun. I would love to do Big Bang Theory. That's in my top 10. That would be of dream jobs. That would be fantastic because Johnny's just such an amazing person as well as amazingly talented, and that's a well-written show. I got a lot of friends on the crew. That would be a dream job.
I have so much respect for Johnny Galecki. I actually used to think he was gay, and clearly he's not. But I saw a comment that he made once, and I can't remember what the exact wording was, but he said basically the essence of it was, why would I make a big deal about people saying that I'm gay when I'm not? It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be gay. So if I was, I would say, hey, I'm gay, but but I'm not. And I just think he's lovely guy, really nice person.
I have that quote somewhere on my Twitter. It was one of the things. Somebody asked him, how come you never defend yourself from the allegations of being gay or whatever? And he goes, why would I defend myself from something that's not a problem?
Yeah.
Something along those lines. And
yeah.
But that's the kind of guy Johnny is. And I think it shows through his heart shows through in the characters he plays too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a there's not much of an age difference, and I used to have a crush on Johnny, but don't tell him that.
I don't think that that's a bad thing.
No, I don't. Absolutely. So, since the Roseanne show ended, we've not seen you in lots of acting roles. Do you feel like some of the cast members that you've maybe been typecast by playing such a well-known role? And have you ever actually been in a situation like an audition where they've said, no, we can't have you for that because people will still see you as DJ?
Yeah, you run into that. But I think in my case in particular, when the show ended, I was a teenager, which is a hard time to find work for anybody in the industry because if they can find somebody who's an adult who looks like a teenager, they don't have to pay for schooling. So that's, so I was at an awkward time anyway.
Right.
And then I got married and I had my son and I had good fans, and then you have the occasional stalker-esque fans.
Right.
And so for me, it was really important. My dad and both my parents worked full-time and had normal jobs. So for me, when it came time to have kids, I really wanted to be the dad on the spot. I wanted to be the guy there every day.
Right.
And really be front and center. And one of the things that I did was for a couple of years, I wasn't even really looking for work. I was just concentrating on raising my brother and being a dad and trying to be the best dad I could be. I wanted to be there every day. And, the way this world works is, I started kind of moving away from the business. And what ended up happening was I ended up working on Roseanne's talk show.
Right. Yeah. We didn't get that in England. I was going to come to that because I lived in England for a lot of my youth, and we didn't get that. But I've seen some kind of back episodes of that, and I saw that you were involved with the show. Do you think that kind of sparked your interest in radio and presenting and broadcasting and stuff?
It was a great experience because on that show, we were one of the first talk shows to ever incorporate a live chat room.
Right.
So
wow.
my job was I was the chat room guy. So in one ear, I had the studio and the producers, and I had the phone calls that were coming in. In my other ear, I had a connection to her, and then meanwhile, I'm running the chat room. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time because I'm trying to incorporate three things. And Roseanne is high energy and really focused and has all these questions, but at times there's questions that guests either don't want to answer or their representation may not want them to answer. So every once in a while it's like, okay, try to steer her back towards something else. It's like, she's a strong force of nature and she's tremendous as she is. Just leave her alone. But that's not what they wanted.
Yeah.
So it was like
I love her, but when
off.
she gets her sarcastic head on, I'm gone. You know, because I've said things to her before, and she's like, because I want to, and that's it. Like Xander's gone.
Well,
you know,
so for me, I'm going. How do I? And then, okay, the person who's supposed to do this segment or whatever didn't call in, so we need you to pull things from the chat room and go.
Right. Wow.
And it's like camera's coming to you in 5, 4, 3, 2. You're on. Say something smart. And so I loved it.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and I loved it. And for me, I had a newborn, and I was taking my son to work with me. And actually, her daughter, Jenny, was pregnant, who most people know from Twitter and from the show. She was babysitting my son while we were taping our shows. But literally, I was, staying up all night with a newborn. And, so those years are joyous and yet a blur, like most parents.
I think Jenny just just loves babies. She's got her fixation on Jen Lou, Mad Lou's youngest 3-month-old River at the moment. So whatever happens, that Jen said she's written a will. Mad Lou says she's written a will where anything happens to her that River gets shipped off to Hawaii to be with Jenny, which I think it's all hilarious, like Twitter legend in the making. But actually, talking of Mad Lou, she suggested a question. She wanted me to ask you why you're not doing your radio show anymore, because we all miss it.
I don't really have a good answer for that.
Right.
During the Thanksgiving period, I had to go and do some work. My number one priority beyond anything else is, family should always come first.
Absolutely.
And so I had to do some work and do some things, and I was away for a few days, and the decision was made to kind of go a different direction, and that was okay with me.
Right.
I really liked all the people that I was on the radio with. I enjoyed the experience, but at that point, life is that way. Some doors close, others open. So
absolutely,
it really presented me with, I had gotten to the point where, I was doing so much research, which I love. I mean, you know how it is.
I do.
You try to for a show, and in that case, we were doing 5 days a week. So I'm pulling news articles and things and magazines and books.
How the hell do you do 5 days a week? I struggle with a 1 to 1.5 hour show a week to get enough content and enough background for 1 to 1.5 hours. How the hell can you do 5 shows a week without a researcher? I mean,
well, everybody has to do their share, and then the other side is I never said I always did my side well, So you kind of, and my secret is I don't really sleep. And as funny as that sounds to people, I'm just such an information person. News articles, I had great people like Kathy Reynolds came on and shared stories from her life, and I'm still touched by
I love Kathy Reynolds. She's in the chat room right now if you want to say hi to her.
I love Kathy. Kathy, whether she realizes it or not, made me a better dad. Because
that's a lovely thing to say.
And it's one of those things when you're a parent and you're racing through things, and like in my case, I've been a coach for the last 15 years, and you deal with other people's kids too. Everything happens so fast, sometimes you need a reality check. And I think
absolutely
that was wonderful for me. And, I have so many interests. Honestly, Xander, I've been so blessed. I can't really complain. Does everything go my way? No, but I mean, I got to do a television show for 9 years with unbelievably good people who happened to be greatly talented, and it was well received. I have no room to complain for the rest of my life. And then somehow, after all that, I found somebody who puts up with me and likes me, even with my faults. And I have 2 really good kids
Does Jennifer have a gay brother, by the way, for me, by any chance?
No, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would try. I would do everything I could to help you in that way.
Thank you.
If you're the right person.
Well, we're going to take some calls very soon, but I just wanted to briefly touch on Glenn Quinn, the fabulous actor who played Mark Healy in the TV show. I'm sure his death left a big hole in your heart, as it did with the viewing public. I never met the guy. I never saw him on TV. But when people have been in your living room every day, like every week, they kind of feel like maybe not even family, but you develop a fondness for them. You begin to care about them. And when he died, it was a big shock. I mean, I'm sure it was an even bigger shock for you and for Rose and for the cast. What are your fondest memories of Glenn? And is it hard for you? Is it as hard for you as it is for the public to watch the episode of Roseanne with him in?
Glenn was one of those unique people who could brighten any day. I mean, he was the kind of guy. He's like one of those bright stars in a really dark night. You just see through everything. And so he had a unique energy. I still talk to his family quite a bit. And, I try to reminisce with them and share those times. Just before Glenn passed away, my wife was pregnant with our second kid, and I was doing behind-the-scenes stuff, and I was really hungry for acting because I hadn't done it in a while, and, the longer you're away, the more your true loves kind of really come out. And I was thinking about it, and then Glenn passed away. And what happened for me when Glenn passed away is I had seen him a couple months before, and we had the most amazing conversation about kind of chasing your dreams. And forgive me if I get a little choked up.
I'm with you.
And doing the things that you want to do in life. And he was so happy for me because he got to meet my wife, and he met my son, and she was pregnant. And you just have this moment where, this is kind of like an extra big brother, and he turned to me and said, hey, you're doing really well, but make sure you go after the things that you love.
Absolutely.
And so I just had this feeling that I wasn't going to see him again because I thought that we just weren't going to be in the same space. And then when I found out that he passed away, it really was, my family was all really set up, and I had a great situation at home. And for me, it was like, this is a example of how short life is and how you don't always know exactly how things are going to go. And the more I start thinking about it, like, I know what I really want to do. I can, my whole life, my parents had normal jobs, so it was always like, well, what are you really going to do for work? You got to grow up one day and get a real job.
Right.
Even after working on the show. So when Glenn passed away, it was like, you know what, this is really, I love this business. This is really what I want to do. And people like Glenn are so amazing. That's where this business is at its best.
Didn't you
like Glenn can reach out?
Didn't you set up a memorial fund for Glenn with Mary Quigley?
Yeah, Mary Quigley, who is a producer on Big Bang, and she did 90% of the work. I got more credit than I deserve, but I did help. I did help do some of it, and mostly I called people. And it's probably the one time in my life I've actually called people and asked them for money, because the memorial fund was for his family, and it was also a way of showing how much we loved him, how much we care. And I visit Glenn all the time. I still think about him all the time. He will never be out of my frame of reference. A lot of the stuff I write, I use his name. And at some point I'm going to do a production and just make people aware. He was such a good person. And that's hard. It's hard to express everything.
I see that. When Estelle Getty died from the Golden Girls, I remember Betty White said that the beauty of people that have been in our lives, like Estelle, like Glenn too, is that number one, they'll always live on in our hearts, but we can still see them on the TV. That's an amazing gift that they've given to us in a way. And I think that that's a very fitting memorial, to see them at their best doing what they loved.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I've brought it to the point of us getting out our Kleenex. Let's take some calls. If you're out there and you have a question for Michael Fishman, you can call us on 347-884-9061. For the last section of the show, that's 347-884-9061. Are you ever surprised by the fact that when people meet you, they kind of talk to you as if you know you? I know just from my minuscule level of celebrity and the things that I've done, when people meet me and they've seen things that I've been in, it's like I'm their best friend. So if you times that by like 10,000, you must kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about.
Oh, no, it's funny because it's even sometimes the people don't realize how they know you, but
right.
People come up and tell you things because they feel so comfortable with you. Sometimes they shouldn't share. Like I get family secrets and full life stories sometimes, and then afterwards it clicks for them why they felt so comfortable.
Right.
So that at times it's amusing. It's humbling. More than anything, it's humbling because to have made an impact on people positively, and I don't really have people who come up and are unhappy with the show.
No.
So I'm very humbled by that because I think it holds up. It has its own value that is positive.
Hey, I think it's kind of funny in a way because I find a couple of years ago I did this internet series called The Killer Tranny, and it was very kind of like lowbrow, humorous stuff. And I even get emails from places like China saying, "We love you, Killer Tranny." And it's humbling, but I always find it hilarious. Like a French TV show, a French magazine interviewed me last year about it, and even just on that small level of some little internet notoriety, people kind of always kind of want to talk to me as that character. Do you find that people kind of talk to you as DJ, or they still think you're DJ, or?
They do. The masturbation episode we talked about briefly earlier, it's kind of
right.
awkward. People will come up and go, "Hey, you're that guy." And you're like, "Yes." And then they're like, "No, the one from that show." And they start doing masturbation hand gestures in the air, trying to come up with the name of the show, which is a really awkward moment. It's real, you're in a public place and all of a sudden someone starts making hand gestures, and then people are staring at you, and you're like, "Yeah, that's me. I'm that guy."
That's hilarious. It really is. I can beat that though. I was in one of my favorite restaurants last year. Jake and I have built up this funny thing on Twitter of the fact that I'm his official gay stalker. Someone in the restaurant who obviously reads my Twitter feed shouted, "Hey, are you Jake Pentland's official gay stalker?" I mean, it was hilarious. Someone I didn't even really know.
But then what do you respond to that?
I just said, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I am, because it's not like stalker and I'm going to be outside his house in 20 minutes and I'm going to knock on his door and look through his garbage. It's just kind of like just this jokey thing that we've built up. But I didn't know what to say when the person said, "Hey, are you Jake Pentland's official gay stalker?" I was just like, "Yep."
And then you're like, "Oh no, people are reading my tweet."
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have a problem with that, really, I put lots of different things in my tweets. I put serious stuff. I attack people, not in a bad way, but when people have done kind of things that I don't like, I say, "Hey, I didn't like this," or "I didn't like the fact that the Pope said this," or whatever. But I use it for different things. I mean, even the other day I was saying there was no truth in the rumor that I was going to be releasing my sex tape with Ray J to boost my celebrity rating. I mean, I put funny stuff on there too because I don't want it just to be all drawl,
Yeah, no, I agree. I see all that as good fun.
Absolutely. I don't think anyone's going to be brave enough to call us, Michael, but I'll give out the number just once more, 347-884-9061. I thought maybe Kathy would call in to tell us how much she's in love with you today, Michael, but I guess that's not going to happen.
No pressure on her. I've been so lucky. I'm working on all these projects, trying to get things going, and I will say that the fans have been really good to me over the years. We have a lot of people who are very supportive.
I think we have a caller. Let me put them on live. Hello, you're live on XANDERMONIUM. Who's this?
This is Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
We were just talking about you.
I have a question from the chat. Someone wanted to know if Michael would let his kids act.
Very good question.
It's funny. My daughter is interested now, and my line has always been the same. I've never really encouraged them, only because in my case, I chose this path, and I think that you really have to, because I think a lot of the stuff that happens with child stars happens because this was somebody else's dream, and so I think maybe from the beginning the individual resents it. So in my case, I never told my kids to or encouraged them to. I just looked at it as this is my job. And it's interesting now because now my daughter is kind of interested, and I don't 100% know how I feel about that, only because, when you go to an audition, it's like when you try to sell something. If I try to sell you a product and you say no to the product, that's okay. But every time you go to an audition, they're saying no to you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So, I don't have a problem with it because that's just part of the way this business is. It's really hard to turn to a young girl who's coming into her own as she's transitioning to a young woman and say, yeah, line yourself up and put yourself in that really tough category. And I'll be here to love you and support you the whole way. But,
right.
If it's something she really wants, I'm a firm believer in chasing your dreams. So pretty soon here, I may have to introduce her to somebody and see if she can find an agent. And it'd be weird to be the guy who goes to the audition and sits in the waiting room for a while.
Yeah. So, Kathy, you've worked with Michael quite a lot. You've done some shows with Michael. Was it kind of weird for you for kind of to be a fan of Michael's and then kind of get to know him on a personal level? How was that for you?
Well, yeah, I guess it was a little odd, but I never think of him as really as little DJ anymore.
No.
I just think of him as Michael, and I like the person he is now, I guess you would say. I kind of have a little crush on him, to be honest, as a person.
Wow. Did you hear that, listeners? We have a XANDERMONIUM first. We have a crush. We have Kathy Reynolds admitting live on the air that she has a crush on Michael Fishman. Is Jenny listening to this, Michael?
Jenny listens to everything, but usually after the fact because it keeps saving for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't want to get slapped while you're doing an interview, do you really? It's not conducive with a good interview.
The other thing I wanted to say is I asked Michael the other day on Twitter if he worked behind the camera for a reason. And it's because I've been thinking greatly on doing a documentary on my son's death and ending that documentary with me meeting the killer and face-to-face. And I kind of wanted you to work on that with me if you were interested.
I think it's an amazing idea. I think your story's so powerful. And for people who don't know, Kathy, her ability to forgive and the compassion that she has, it's amazing. And if you haven't looked her up on Twitter and got to know her, she's one of the highlights for me of actually my Twitter experience. Is, like I said earlier, she really gave me an awakening. We'll have to talk because, I don't do a ton of stuff as far as documentary and stuff goes behind the camera, but I would love to help you in any way I can.
Cool.
Okay, great.
See, the XANDERMONIUM show, we bring people with talent together. Listen, Kathy, I love you so much. I think you're a wonderful person, and I love the fact that you're a peacemaker. You're the peacemaker of the cult of Jake. Every time there's these big fallouts over he said, she said, this happened, that happened. You try and bring everybody together, and I thank you for that. It must be a very thankless task to be that person who has to be in the middle all the time. But listen, thank you so much for calling in. Thank you for being in the chat.
Thanks for talking, you guys.
We love you very much, Kathy.
Bye.
Thank you, Kathy.
Bye. So, Michael, I just wanted to say I just was looking at my interactions on Twitter, and without saying too much, you might want to delete your last but one tweet to me.
I did.
You did. Good. Okay. You obviously know what I'm talking about. Now, if they were to do another series of Roseanne, like with all the characters that were in it before, would you do it? And what do you think DJ would be doing now as the 30-something son of a lottery millionaire?
Well, because technically at the end, she didn't win the lotto. She wrote that part. So that was
right. That was all. She'd made all that up, hadn't she, basically?
Yeah, and so I think, I don't know that I would even be in it, because every time I've ever heard anybody talk to Roseanne about a potential reunion or like a reunion episode or where would the characters be now, she always implies that DJ joined the military and died in Iraq or in Afghanistan.
Died?
Yeah, so, that doesn't leave me a whole lot of... No, absolutely. Although I would say, for me, but it wouldn't be what people would want. I mean, if you're going to do how that happened and how it affected everybody, it would be different. If you wanted to do some flashbacks, it could be different.
Right.
I think reunions are so hard.
I know, I get that.
It was such a time period. I think, I was there when Roseanne did her pilot, I think it was last year with John. And, man, their chemistry is still just as good. And so I think all of our chemistry would be good.
How stupid were they not to take up Downwardly Mobile? I mean, come on.
I was heartbroken.
What are these networks... Some of the shit that they're putting out there, what are these networks thinking? They got rid of Roseanne's nuts after a couple of series. That was brain surgery compared to Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And Downwardly Mobile, I never saw the script, but anything with John and Rose would be amazing, And it was written by Johnny and Roseanne, I believe. So that would have just been... I don't know what the networks are smoking. I really don't. Or obviously, clearly, they're not smoking enough of it, whatever it is.
Well, I don't know what the thought process. I will say this, having been there for the taping of the pilot, because I went purely as being somebody who cares about the people involved and trying to show support. There were so many good moments, and their chemistry jumps off the screen at you.
I believe that.
And so, it was... In a lot of ways, it was just beautiful to just see them. I mean, man, they could have been reading the phone book. As much fun as they were having going back and forth, they made everything fun, And I thought the script actually was good, and we had some good writers. Eric Gilliland was on there, who actually worked on the series at one point. And a number of writers who had come back, and there were a lot of people there. I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful taping, and so I was shocked when it ended up not being picked up.
Like I said, I just question the vision of some of these. I write too, and I have a couple of projects that have been floating around for the last couple of years, and they're damn good. I'm not just saying that for the sake of it, but you wouldn't put anything out there that you wouldn't think was good yourself. But the vision has gone with a lot of networks, unfortunately, and I think that's a shame. It really is.
It's hard. For them, it's very hard because there's so much money invested in things on the line. And I think, unfortunately, we've come to a place where very few networks want to really take a chance or really want to go too far out on a ledge. So you end up with a lot of stuff that's very similar and a lot of kind of cookie-cutter stuff. And it's really hard when you come up with a great, unique take on something or an idea. and you know it's good, and the people you talk to even sometimes will go, hey, this script you wrote is fantastic. I just don't know what I'd do with it. And you're like, well, you put it on the air because it's fantastic.
I think the thing is for me, and it's funny, this is the way a lot of it is going, is that you really have to get the money and make your own pilot. And there's a reality show that I'm going to be working on this year that I don't want to say too much about, but I'm just going to do it myself because I think that's what you got to do to get the interest.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of independent producers, and really been trying to do kind of the same thing. And then I wrote a script, and a lot of stuff. It's hard to, who do you trust to show things to, and you got to.
Oh, you're telling me. Did you copyright it before you put it out there at all?
Oh, yeah,
me too.
People don't know.
Sorry, go on.
Oh no, it's just like you said. There's a nightmare of legality and paperwork and stuff that people never see. Yeah. And as a kid, I wrote, and I had things stolen, even as a kid. Right. And so then you really are like, you kind of pull back. You're like, oh, this is not good. And then you start trying to go back and create all these things. So it's really hard because how much you trust or how much you share depends on the environment and the situation and having everything lined up.
You're so right. It's made me very careful. I email myself. Which every time I get to a juncture, like a new chapter, I email myself that. When it's done, I copyright it. I get a copy of all the emails, so nobody could ever say, actually, Xander, you didn't write that. It was me. So I just think you have to overprotect yourself with stuff because it's my intellectual property that's out there, and I don't want anyone else taking credit for that, which I think is absolutely fair. Listen, Michael, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I know we're up against it, but one of the things you can do for people out there is take it and mail it to yourself in an envelope.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
And don't open it. And then you can break it out in court if you need to. And it's
absolutely. There are so many cheap copyright ways of doing it, including emailing yourself and mailing it to yourself and stuff. But as you just rightly pointed out, we're getting towards the end of the show. Now, at the end of the show, normally what I do with my guests is one of several things. We either play a game of quick-fire questions or a game of marry, fuck, or kill. Now, I didn't think that you would probably be up for a game of marry, fuck, or kill because with you being married. So what I did was I thought about quick-fire questions. So what I did was I'm going to test your knowledge. We're going to do 10 quick-fire questions on the Roseanne Sitcom. What?
See, I'm going to be the difficult guest. Who were my three for marry, fuck, or kill? Because I'm just curious.
I didn't. Well, normally I do a list of them, but I didn't even go into a list for you because for some people I kind of think, no, I don't really think that would be right for them.
Okay.
So I didn't even get a list. But what I have got is a list of 10 interesting questions about the Roseanne Sitcom. Let's see how you score. So it's not on the clock because we're not that jazzy here at Blog Talk. So, question number 1: what was Jackie's husband's name?
The
character. Yep, that's right. What was the name of the woman that Dan fantasized about? I love you, Danny. I want you, Danny.
Yes. God, I don't know. That one I don't know.
Marge Dolman.
Oh, I had an M, too, and it was... Oh, killing me.
How much money did the Connor family win on the lottery?
$108 million.
Correct. Crystal's first husband is buried where?
Under the Bridge, which is one
Under
of the
the Bridge.
Episodes. And I have to say, that's one of those episodes, it's Bridge Over a River something is the name of the episode.
Yeah, I remember that. I probably have watched every single episode a million times. Question number 5, what was Jackie's real name at birth?
I don't know that one, and I should.
Roseanne changed the name to My Jackie, but it was...
I don't know. That one I don't remember.
Marjorie. What was the name of the... Go on?
I didn't think I would stump you with
any of these. I really didn't. What was the name of the restaurant the Connors owned, and who chose the name? This is probably too easy for you.
That would be me for Loose Meat.
No. It was called... the character DJ chose the name, but it was called The Lunchbox.
Yeah, but it was originally Loose Meat.
Was it? Okay, then we'll give you half a point for that one, Michael. All right, what was the Connors address? Question number 7.
714, Delaware.
Yep, absolutely correct. Question number 8. What was the name of the factory where Jackie and Roseanne worked?
Wellman Plastics.
Absolutely. Question number 9. What was the beauty shop owner's husband's name? And the beauty shop was named after him.
It was related to the Wellman.
No, the Wellman mother came in there to get her hair done. You see, I passed Roseanne 101.
Yeah, you did. I'm getting a C at this point. That's not pretty.
Did you give up?
Yeah.
It was Art. Hello, Art.
Oh. Yes.
All right, question number 10. Crystal speaks with a southern accent because... This is a great catch line from the show.
That one I don't know.
Because her dad is from Arkansas.
Oh, that's right.
I think you scored. I think you scored about 7 there, Fishy. 7 out of a possible 10. But the questions were really, everybody in the chat room is saying about they thought you would probably know more answers. Joe at Night is saying, I was sure that Michael wouldn't say F-U-C-K. What else? I'm just giving you some things from that. You see, because obviously, Michael, there's a halo above your head and you never swear.
No, please. I swear like a sailor. I grew up with comedians.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, one thing I really want to ask you about quickly before you go. Now, you worked with Sharon Stone on the show and also Shelley Winters. I mean, how freaking amazing was that to have worked with those people? I mean, obviously, as well as working with Roseanne, the fabulous Roseanne Barr, but these people are legends. Shelley Winters was your grandmother on the television.
Yeah, Estelle Parsons, Milton Berle, I mean, so many, Debbie Reynolds.
Yeah,
so many,
Debbie Reynolds, yeah, she was your grandmother too, wasn't she?
Yeah, Carrie Fisher.
Yep.
There's just so many amazing people that I got to work with. I don't think you really realize, you don't realize at the time, and I think Roseanne and John and Lori will go down as legendary performers too.
Me too.
You don't realize. Sometimes you don't realize how select the company you're in is.
I have to agree with you. I mean, the Roseanne sitcom was syndicated internationally. Now, you might know the figures more than I do, but it was translated into other languages and stuff too. I even remember seeing on a TV show when I was in the UK that Roseanne was on as a guest. They showed her in Japanese or some Asian language, and it was kind of funny to see, Roseanne's mouth moving and all this Asian language kind of coming out. I mean, it really was a pivotal TV show, and I have to say, it was really one of my favorites. Growing up as a gay person, to actually see 2 gay guys as characters on a show that even got married. We're talking 20 years ago. We're still debating about whether gay marriage is appropriate or right or legal and all of these things. But 15, 20 years ago, it was subject matter on the Roseanne show. Can you say groundbreaking?
Well, that's the thing is, things that people are still fighting over now. We, before any of these shows, before Ellen, before all these things, there we were, and we had a gay wedding, and people
absolutely
freak out about it now, and you think about it and you go, well, we did this, like you said, almost 20 years ago.
Yep.
And, did it with a sense of humor.
I think the Roseanne show was only missing one factor. Can you guess what I'm going to say?
No. What is the factor?
Xander Gibb. I'm joking,
now,
of course.
Now, were you working at the time?
I was, but I wasn't in the States. I actually saw it in the UK when I lived there, and really, obviously, I wasn't working at that level, so it wouldn't have really been a possibility. But that would have been a dream to work on Roseanne. You know, I mean, some things you watch, and as an actor, you think, yeah, I really would have liked to have been in that. Hello? I think we lost Michael Fishman. His call dropped. But I would like to say thank you so much to Michael for being on the show today. Thank you to all of you for listening. That was absolutely a fabulous interview. We will be back with you next week at 5 p.m. at the same time. He's back. Wait a second. Hello?
Oh, can you forgive me somehow?
I can forgive you. We lost you. We were going to go to end credits, but we were kind of in the middle of our conversation. But I was just saying how great it was. I really enjoyed this interview, Michael. And, you know, it's weird when you kind of see people, you have a little bit of an interaction with them, and then when you speak to them for the first time, it's very rare that I can have a conversation with people or an interview, and I don't feel like I haven't known you forever. I hope that's complimentary, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I take that very well. It was very enjoyable. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being on, and hopefully maybe you'll come along and be a guest co-host sometime. That would be really cool.
That'd be fun. It would
Brilliant.
be fun.
All right, well, you have a great weekend, and say hi to Jennifer and the kids for me, and we will see you again on XANDERMONIUM sometime in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fishy. That was the fabulous Michael Fishman. As you just heard, he's agreed to come and be a guest co-host sometime in the future. We will be back with you next week, same time, same place, 5 p.m., Blog Talk Radio. You've been listening to XANDERMONIUM with me, Xander Gibb, and this episode was called Fishy and I bid you goodbye. Bye. Love you. Love, it has been good to me this time.